year ahead of his age group, and my second son has 5 classes this term, and so if he finishes them in January, then he's done. And he would normally graduate, I guess, in June. They took the easy way out. They weren't hugely concerned with getting into university. So in junior high, we had long talks about what that would look like for them. If they wanted to go to university, they needed to go maybe down this path, and if they wanted to go into trades, here's another path. But they didn't. They felt so unsure of what they wanted that they just the most thing they wanted was to just not have to do school, to live their life. So we made it really clear to them that they could always go to university, but if they didn't take the classes that got them into university right now, then they would have to take college classes first to spiff up their portfolio. And they've been okay with that. My first son is not interested at all in being in university right now, so he's getting married. I guess that's probably why. And we'll see how that works for them in his future, but he's a self-starter and a go-getter and works 2 jobs and loves his life. So I guess university is not for everybody. And my second son, he probably will do something artistic if he can get into an art school someplace. He likes to write music and he wants to be able to find a way to get paid for that. But they have continued to have a joy of learning. We've taught them to play the piano, and they've taught themselves how to play practically every other instrument since then, just because they wanted to know. We got a mandolin and a banjo and all kinds of keyboards and guitars and drums. Everything is in my house, and they both play all the time, whenever they want, and they've taught themselves. I think that's kind of cool. My oldest son is teaching himself how to do. He's sort of taken another online course for computer something, and that hopefully will get him into he works in a computer store now, so the fellow who does all of their programming saw an aptitude in him, and so now he's taken an online course to do that on the side of his 2 jobs and getting married. So I feel also that we have achieved the goal of lifelong learning. They see the value, they know how to ask a question, and they know how to try to discover the answer, and I count that as success. And they're joyful in their learning process. They feel a sense of accomplishment, and that always feels good. I see the stuff that's posted all the time on the Facebook page. I look all often and see, and it feels to me a little bit like the homeschool community today has shifted a bit since when I started. It feels like, maybe because I was ensconced in it, that I didn't notice, but it feels like there's more stress earlier. I need a curriculum for early elementary, and I need, it feels like what I kept my kids home from in brick and mortar schools, that pressure to achieve something super duper at such an early age. It feels like it's crawled into the homeschool community a bit to me. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Achieving things is good. It just feels like it is stress, and I don't remember feeling much of that stress. Maybe I'm just a different person that way, but I would just encourage you to enjoy the time with your kids. There's nothing like watching them conquer something that was hard, and being part of that on a daily basis. Sometimes it's hard to see those things, but when they really, they finally get a concept, and the joy in them, and that you've been able to facilitate a little, that is priceless, or at least it was to me. That was why I like to do that kind of thing. After school, my boys, actually when they were 14, they both started working at A&W. They cooked there. My oldest son went to Cape May Bible School in Germany for a year and traveled for a while, and that's where he met his wife to be. I feel like our journey has been successful in homeschooling. I miss the days when they were little, believe it or not, and when we did so much together. I'm proud of the responsible young men that they've become. There have been hard times. We've been frustrated. We've cried. But I feel like our goals have been accomplished. My oldest son said he's not homeschooling his kids when he has them, and I asked him why, and he says, because I don't have any friends. He told me that when he was just finished grade 12. And I said, well, that's not really true. You have one really good friend that you've had since you were 9, and do you require more than that? Maybe you're that, like, your father is a one friend kind of fellow, and I said, I see that as you grew up in a street with a lot of kids, and they've moved on, and now he's been to Bible school and back, and he has a huge online community with those folks that he met there, and he's a youth leader, and he leads the youth band at our church, and he's become a very social person, but I haven't asked him lately if he'd change his mind. His wife actually has asked me about homeschooling, and so I'm thinking he might change that tune. It was just kind of a year where he felt abandoned by everyone. When they were little, they wanted to go to school because they wanted to ride the bus. And I said, well, that's not a good enough reason, and you can't ride the bus. So we were always open. I said, if you come to me with a reason why you think that that's a good choice for you, then we'll discuss it. But they never, when the bus was out, there was never a better reason than that. So I think they're pretty secure, and they can pretty much do whatever they want, and that was really my goal. I can't think of anything else I should be saying, so.
Question?
Yeah, have you got anything I can answer? I don't know, but.
You said they went to online school in 10, 11, and 12. Which
We dated eBus.
Okay.
Yeah,
eBus. Good.
yeah. My second son was at self-design for grade 8 and 9, but I was bought by eBus because self-design wouldn't give me the money that eBus would. They had the same sort of program for self-design, but they gave you $125 per course, but you could only spend it on that course. And eBus lets me lump it all together and pay for his arts. So you had to spend $125 on math and $125 on English only, and I wasn't going to do that if it's all online.
Yeah.
So it didn't make any sense to me, and I explained that to my teacher, and he said he'd probably do the same thing, move over. So it was totally a money thing, because I liked the money for his drama. Yeah. And it's online. It's the stuff you have to do for your diploma. It's not really different anywhere you go.
And did they do any sciences or anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was required. They didn't do anything extra.
Okay.
We had years ago, when you could buy equipment with your discretionary dollars, we bought a $400 microscope, a really nice one, and that's been the best thing. I'm saving it for grandchildren, because they would take everything and put it under the microscope and then ask questions and do projects about that. And rocks, slug eggs. I didn't know that we even had slug eggs in our garden, but we did, and they brought a whole lump of them in with dirt and all, and they put it on the thing, and they looked at slug eggs under the microscope, and then from there went on to do a life cycle of slugs and what that meant to them. We actually got lice in our house from a friend of my older son's. I just thought, I thought I avoided that. But they were scratching, and bugs actually fell out of his head, and homeschool mom that I am said, hey, let's look at them under the microscope, and they're super ugly. Super ugly, yeah. But they remembered that, right? It was everything in the freezer or the washing machine, and we cleaned it up, and yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to ask you a little bit more about your grade 8 and 9 years, because I have a son in grade 8 this year,
I thought about just unenrolling them to sort of have a couple of years before the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so I'd like to know just how that worked with self-design, like how does that,
You
how
know,
can they do such a different
they
approach?
they just did. I don't know if maybe they still can't. But when I did it, I mean, he's great. That would be 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I had to write down what we were doing. He still did English and math every day,
okay,
and then they just didn't ask me to give them any
evident,
paper evidence.
paper evidence.
It was only anecdotal. I would just write and say, you know, we went to see the local production of Romeo and Juliet, and he cried at the end. So I knew he got it, right? And the teacher would just go, wow, and that covered English for the for a while, and then we would study something historical about what we saw, or we would do some kind of thing, and I would say we went home and we studied the time period a little bit, and he learned about, whatever it was that we would ask questions of, and that would be history.
So you weren't dictated to by
Nope.
the PLOs for those years,
No.
and yet
They might, maybe other teachers would, but my teacher was super relaxed. And you can sort of pick, do you do self-design?
No, I don't.
They have a page of all of their teachers, and then they have little bios, and I picked a guy who was an artist.
I totally agree that finding a teacher that's a good fit for you.
Yeah.
That's why we stayed with school reps, because we have
Yeah.
such
A good
a good
relationship.
match with our
Yeah.
teacher. She understands what
Yeah.
we're doing, so I don't have to do a lot to sort of
Yeah.
keep up to date with
It was
her.
hard for me to just let go, to just not, to sort of be unschooled, it felt like. Just not have, so I still, like I looked at the PLOs and I said, well, you know what? I think they still did English and Math Smart for grade 8. I think we still did it for that year.
Yeah,
And then
but the topics for science and socials were not dictated to.
the school didn't dictate anything to me. I think I looked at the PLOs and went, oh, we're supposed to do this in socials, whatever it was, medieval times or
Yeah.
something like that. We did a project. We did a socials project on a backboard for medieval, and I had a book that studied castles, and so we learned all about, the toilets going out the wall into the gutter kind of
Yeah.
thing, and we just did a project. We did it all project based, and then I would take a picture of it and send it to him and say, this is what we learned. And I would do that every couple of months or something. Yeah.
I find the thing that I keep sort of coming back to is, this love of learning that I want to develop. I don't want because actually he was going, oh, school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking, do I have to do this?
This shouldn't be happening. Well, that's not why I'm homeschooling.
Exactly.
So, it's hard to find the right amount of structure and still have them, be developing their interests
Right.
and loving learning.
Yeah, well, my kids they were up every day at a reasonable time,
Yeah.
to bed every night at a reasonable time, as much as I could control that.
Yeah.
And they got a job at 14, so they managed to fit that in, and piano lessons, and it didn't seem like a real huge stress for them or me. I don't remember being super stressed about it, but I know at the end of grade 9, then he was like, oh, I feel so stupid because I haven't really done anything. But he just didn't really know what he was doing, right? That through conversations and through a whole lot of just because he liked what he was researching or studying or something, it didn't look like work then. So I think he didn't realize that he was actually doing something that was learning. Don't know.
With the e-bus, my daughter was feeling the stress, and she actually is only in grade 6, and that's where the teacher said, well, I know she likes digital stuff, why don't you just get her to do, digital this and I had to hand it to the teacher to say, let's get something to capture her
Nice.
interest again,
Yeah.
so that she's not feeling, and then somebody else said lap books, and it's kind of like.
We did that, yeah.
Yeah.
I
How
love
did
lap
you-
books.
How did you find, my biggest thing about lap books is that I don't want to spend $10 and find out that my child hates it 3 pages in.
Right.
And
I don't know if I actually ever bought a lap book, but we did sort of maybe I did once. I might have done once. And then I saw
the pattern.
the pattern and then I just did it myself.
Okay.
Yeah. But mostly, I think mostly we just did, just a project, like a science project. We just did history that way or geography that way, learning and geology. I remember him in grade 9 doing a geology thing about, earth crust and stuff, and it was all on a project. And then I used that same project for English because he had to write about it, he had his research, and so that covered tons of outcomes that the teacher had to make fit.
Well, actually, they're combining
Mhm.
science and English this
Yeah.
year in social studies and, well, she just did a stained glass window.
It's
that was
humanities or something, isn't it now, or something? I think so.
Well, it's project-based in grade 8.
Oh, cool.
Where they have to pick 5 social projects and 8 e-science projects.
Oh, wow.
So, my
That sounds
daughter's
all
loving
right.
it.
Nice. In grade 8, my oldest son, I remember his math teacher calling me and saying something about he hasn't done this yet, he has to learn this, and I'm thinking it's like November, what's the problem? Like first reports were coming out or something. He hasn't done, it's on the test, and I went, oh my goodness, what test? Well, the grade 10 math exam, and I'm thinking, this is grade 8, why are you pressuring him for that? Like it's, wow, how to kill the joy there. He didn't like math to begin with, but I said, wow, relax. But he was a pretty high-strung teacher, and that's why we didn't do that with my second son, who would have never responded to that kind of pressure from the teacher. My oldest son could do it, but my second son, never. And that's why I went to self-design for junior high, because I thought I can't put him through that. He would crumble. So, yeah. Didn't like teaching to a test. And they did all their provincial exams at the local high school. You just have to sign them in, and those were the only tests I think they ever wrote, and they were frightened beyond belief to walk through the door and have to, we did all the practice. They have practice ones online that you can do last year's, the year before's, whatever, and they grade it and they tell you whatever. They were both super frightened, but I said, I don't even care what that grade is. I said, just pass, because the grade is what you've done, the work you've done, not the test that you're taking. If you fail the test, then your grade's going to tank a hole, or you're not going to get out of this class. But I said, all you have to do is pass. That's your goal. And they always did in the middle 70s and up for their percentages. So it wasn't they stressed, but they could do it.
Would either of your sons consider, like you can take high school courses, I think, free until you're 25. Would either of your sons?
Can they?
I believe
I thought after 19 you can't.
It might
Yeah.
be 19.
I think it's 19.
I think it's 19.
25.
Yeah. Well, EBUS has.
My kids
And
are
you can
not
take
like
you can take university courses free if you're in grade 12 and you've achieved what you finished. Like you can take 101 courses in grade 12, so like a university level class if you're still in high school.
They're free adult education courses too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Only the basic ones, though.
Oh, are they?
But the magic key for some of these was the under 25, and so when her son was 20, I thought, no, he might want to do that, but
Yeah, he's on his own.
yeah.
Yeah, I know you can get into university at 19 as an adult without adulthood. That I know. So you don't have to have finished high school to get into most universities. If you enter as an adult. So you can take a year off and go do something and come back. There's always a way. And you can write entrance exams, you can challenge courses. There's if you're so inclined and able.
Do you know how to challenge a course?
I was talking to somebody who was doing that. I work with a girl who took some university courses right out of high school, got married, had kids, kind of left it to the wayside, and now she's in her middle 30s and she's going back for a theater diploma. And she is in a class with a bunch of 18-year-olds who she could probably also be teaching the course because she's got enough experience in theater stuff from working in it. And so she said, she asked the teacher if she could just challenge, and the teacher set it up for her to either write an exam or do a project or something. I don't know, but she's getting credit for the course without actually finishing it.
Huh.
So I don't know. That's local at UFE.
I know somebody who is doing, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a whole program that is for kids who are wanting to challenge. You can do your kind of first couple years of university without actually going to university by challenging the exams. Actually, he would like to do a talk, and I keep meaning to give the information about that, about how to do that. Because there is, I can't remember what it's called right now, but there is like a body that's sort of organizing somehow how you can do this. And it's a way of really cutting down on your costs too.
You still have to pay for the exam probably, right?
Probably for the exam, you don't pay for the course, I guess. You save a lot of money if you're motivated and you're, willing to study at home. I don't think my kids would go for that.
Well, my daughter wants to take her English 105 for like basic English that way because she says, I already know how to write an essay. Why do I have
Yeah.
to take this silly course?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you can do it. There's a way of doing it. I will, actually, he just contacted me because he'd like to do a talk out here. So I
Cool.
will get him to write a little blurb up and see if anyone's interested in finding out about that.
Nice. I know you can, like if your kids are in scouts, you can get 4 credits for high school for being in a scouting group. My son comes to SOPA, so he gets 4 acting credits every year that he's grade 10, 11, 12, and it counts 4 credits for doing what he does. For piano lessons, he gets 4 credits.
Wow.
Yeah. You have to, I mean, it's an independent studies class, and so he has to, his piano teacher says this is what we're going to do this year, or he tells his online teacher what he's going to do this year, and then every month he basically just writes anecdotal how much time he practiced and what he's doing, basically. So he's writing music, and so he's going in the festival for his own composition, and time spent doing something that he likes, and he's getting 12 credits for it, because grade 10, 11, 12 each year he's gotten his drama and his music just by doing things that he likes to do.
My daughter did a lot of those. I think she graduated with like 120 credits because of all her music that she was doing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of paperwork. We kind of found by grade 12, she was like, I'm kind of done with I don't need the money. I'd rather just not do that course because you have to report, and then you have to report on what you're doing. You don't just have to do your piano lessons, but you have to tell somebody what you're doing.
He writes in once a month, end of the month. He says, this is
Yeah.
how much I practiced, and this is
What you
basically what I
did.
did. Yeah.
There is a
He's-
composition, if your son is doing composition, there's one at Fraser Valley Distance, what's that, ADS? There's a composition class there that she did, that was really
Well, he's
kind of done.
yeah. He's doing it with his piano teacher, and he collaborates with somebody in England, and they write music that somebody actually even asked him if they could buy. So yeah, I know, he's pretty pumped about that.
What kind of music does he write?
The stuff that he's been doing online is mixing music, but he's a very romantic ear. So he likes John Williams, the composer that composes for all the movies, and that's his dream job would be to compose music for video games or movies. And he's well on his way. His task this month from his piano teacher was to take Moonlight Sonata, a classical piece, and turn it into jazz. And it was beautiful.
Who's his piano teacher?
Lamiki Tater. So it was quite awesome. He remixed the songs from Winnie the Pooh into this little ditty thing that I could recognize the tune, but it was just, I said, what do you do with this? He said, I just hear it in my head and I just have to put it down. So who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
question.
Sure.
I'm still kind of at the beginning. I just started grade 1.
The fun time.
Yeah, that's right.
Arts and crafts.
Yeah, that's right. Arts and crafts. Yeah, I actually think I'm getting carpal tunnel from
Yeah.
all my cutting. But I actually was wondering if you found there was a certain age that families kind of just, started putting their kids into school, and then how you adjusted your activities. I mean, this is obviously looking ahead, but I just feel like a lot of the families that we connect with say, oh yeah, like by the time they're in grade 4, by the time they're in grade, I'm going to put them
Grade
in
8.
school, or, yeah, right? And so then I just wonder,
I think
how
it's
does that change for, because you were just saying your son felt like he had no friends or whatever, and I sometimes think about that, like if my son's friends start going to
Yeah.
school, how that'll change his.
Well, for the friends thing, he did have his one really close friend who
was
he wasn't homeschooled,
Oh, he wasn't.
and who still is his very close friend. Every family does that different. I found putting him in a class at middle school age, grade 7, 8, 9, was super hard on him, because that's kind of like a really hard
That's
age,
what I
no matter where you
yeah,
are,
that's what I
and not the best place to just jump in and be the odd kid,
Mhm.
right? If he was there full time, I think he would have been fine. He didn't want to go full time after
I'm
being
not
there
saying
for
that I
months, yeah.
necessarily have a plan to enroll. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking like if a few families start dropping off, right?
You know
It's
what?
kind of what
We-
it sounds like.
I came to this group because I needed to know I wasn't the only wacko out there.
Mhm.
And it wasn't necessarily for my kids, although I thought so at the time. But looking back, I think I joined a support group because I needed to talk to another adult and find out that I wasn't doing things weird or warping my kids or sharing ideas, doing things together. We didn't ever really do much as a family with the homeschool group. Swimming lessons, the project fairs, a few field trips and stuff like that, but we were busy doing stuff all the time, and they never found really good friends in the homeschool group that they just had to go and see at these things. Neither did they find really good friends at our church. So for a while I was thinking, wow, my kids can't make friends. But we were odd everywhere we went. It felt like we just didn't, and I don't think they necessarily credit. They had each other, and they didn't really, I never thought that finding a friend was a really good reason to go to school. And I had that chat with them, because I said, wow, I was in school for 12 years, and my one best friend I still see, but everybody else I don't even care if I see, right? So that's not, the people that I went to Bible school with, I'm better friends with more of them, because I've made them as an adult, or they're different viewpoints or whatever. But I said, I just don't think going there to find a friend is really the best reason, but that's personal. And they seem to sort of think that was reasonable. I was really encouraging them to go to school at grade 10, because I thought, I can't do grade 10 math. I seriously cannot do grade 10 math. Said, I don't think I can help you. But then I realized I don't really have to help you. I just got to make sure you do the work. You've got an online teacher to help you. So I thought they should go at grade 10, because I wanted them to have the good experience that I had, the group of people to graduate with, and all the fun things that were, and they had no interest at all. What do I care about a graduation ceremony and a party? They just didn't see that as a goal, so we never did. They stayed home. And my second son he finds his little circle of people at SOPA in his drama class, and they're all walks of life. They're not people that are going to be his lifelong buddies at all by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got a little group there that he feels like he can relate to, and that think he's talented or funny or whatever it is that he wants to be, and they do stuff together once in a while. He's got a couple of guys that he hangs out with that have completely different interests than him, other than their little bonding at SOPA. But it's an interesting little journey. But I don't think there's a magic time to go. You put your kids in for grade 5, didn't you?
Yeah.
Or for 1 year if they wanted?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody does that different. I just think I would drive my son to school, to middle school, and everything was let's learn this lesson now. I said, do you see why that girl's not the one you want to bring home? And he'd go, I says, because she's advertising everything that she's about. And then the next girl would come by in a beautiful tracksuit, all zipped up and very modest. And I'd say, do you see what is the difference here? And we had very frank discussions about, that sort of thing. We used that time. Everything was a learning moment, but he's got very modest taste, and I'm happy about that. But what he saw in school didn't interest him at all. He said it was just pressure where he didn't think it should be, and the focus was so much on not being individual but being part of the crowd. And he didn't see any value in pure culture at all.
I just sharing something about my daughter with homeschooled all the way to grade 12, and she's just been in her first year of college this year, and we just went to a performance at the end. Actually, she went to a composition thing.
Nice.
So we went to this, and I was really disappointed because she put such a big effort into her piece that she had performed, but so many of the students were just, they hadn't really practiced it, and they didn't seem to really care what they were, the overall impression was,
Just get through it.
they don't really, this was a performance, we wrote all our family, and there was hardly anybody at it, and most of the students actually left when their piece was done. They didn't even stay and listen to the other kids'
that's too bad.
performance, and we were just thinking about that afterwards, just, why bother going to all this program and doing the composition thing, and then you don't really seem to care how it's presented or how it all comes off. And I guess I thought afterwards, it probably is a lot of the school culture, because they're used to not maybe really caring about what they're doing, and I don't know, I think
there's a mix of
there's
kids in
probably a lot of
every
things going
place,
on,
yeah.
but it was
Yeah.
just quite surprised. I was quite like, oh.
Hmm.
It was so casual too. Everything is just so, they don't really, they want to be kind of fit in, but they don't want to stand out too much by making too much of an effort. Or, I don't know, it was quite interesting. It was quite sad actually to see that, these kids are probably, could do a better job if they, I don't know, they're so influenced by how they are perceived by each other. They can't really
They can't be individual.
They can't do what they want to do without, they're so self-conscious. So many of them were so self-conscious about what they're doing.
Yeah, I see at SOBA, there's 200 kids that come through there every weekend. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when you're kind of around a lot of people who are doing something like this, I guess,
Yeah.
I don't see it in such a generalized way, because I've not been around
Right.
sort of schools or seeing what the kids coming out of the culture are like. I'm not knocking them at all. It's just, gave a kind of overall impression of mediocrity. It's very mediocre what people even want to be. They don't want to, be really good at what they're doing. I don't know. It's quite. I
It's
guess an
kinda sad.
encouragement to keep, that you're not doing something, you're not holding them back by keeping them home. Even in high school, you're not sort of saying, you can't, you won't be able to keep up with everybody else if I keep you home in high school.
And you can still apply for scholarships and all that. There's lots of
Oh, yeah,
opportunities
yeah.
to do that, even if you're not in a regular school. There's lots of things to do that can help you carry on, if you find them.
Jen, with your age question about kids and you're trying to look to the future and what people are going to do, I'm only a couple years ahead of you, but I would say too that I think a lot of times people don't want to say for sure this is what we're doing, like forever. And so it's kind of intimidating, right? Like as they get older, how do you really do it, And so it's like, well, when they're about this age, we'll kind of put them in school. But then I don't know, a couple years on, then it's still a couple years ahead that people are planning to put them in school, at least the people that I kind of run with.
So then my question isn't necessarily when I should put him into school, because that's not what I mean, just what you're saying, I don't have any intentions either way.
Yeah.
My question was just more how the community changed, like in terms, right? But it
Yeah, but I'm
sounds like
trying
you're
to-
saying that
yeah.
it does,
Maybe it does, but it doesn't as much as I thought it would either, right? Because, we don't really know what we're doing, right? So, and I always say, like, I don't know, I look at schools in February, like, I do it every year.
rainy season, right?
But like, we keep going, and so, a lot of people
It
do.
used to, I think, when my kids were back in elementary school, it looked like by the junior high time, people were putting them
We found
putting them
that.
in, because either that or that age group of kids just wasn't connecting with the group that we saw them. And that's pretty much when we dropped out of doing anything with the group, was when they could swim good enough, they didn't need lessons anymore, or things were very much geared to the younger or elementary age field trips that you didn't, and then also doing online, there's a certain amount of work you have to do, so there wasn't necessarily time to schedule something fun to do with that age group, and my kids were also working by 14, so then they work and do school, and there wasn't, their peer culture wasn't in the homeschool group, because they never really had a close friend there, so we dropped out, I'm sure, then, because we just didn't have the need to be involved so much, so maybe you'll see some of that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
could be too.
I have a question. Did you ever register your kids, or were they enrolled all the way through?
What's the difference? Which one is the?
And
My kids have always got the money for school, so we've always been attached to we've never been
Okay.
considered homeschool in the eyes of the law.
Sorry, I don't understand. What was that again? The registering, from what I understand, is that you're really not accountable for,
We've always enrolled,
okay, so you've always enrolled.
yeah, because we've always depended on the
The
financial.
finances.
Yes,
I see.
yeah. And the government doesn't necessarily think you're a homeschool student when you get paid, when you're
I see.
in the system like that.
I see.
Yeah, homeschool would be that you're pretty much not,
You don't have a teacher. is
you know,
kind of-
exactly,
answering
you're
the
not connected
teacher.
to a school someplace, yeah. So we were always enrolled, right? That's the right one, yeah. Never could get that straight.
Takes a while.
Yeah, I don't have to know anymore.
Your son's graduating this year, right?
Yeah,
Then you're done.
I know. 15 years
So
of
you're
homeschool.
a retired teacher.
Oh,
right?
No pension.
But you can't bath by yourself now, right?
I've been able to do that for a long
Yeah.
time now, so yeah. Just those first few years where I remember getting questions from folks, oh, you homeschool? Oh, I could never do that. And I always thought, well, why not? Don't you like your kids?
Yeah.
Do you want someone else? That's a lot of time to give them to someone else to raise. That always crossed my mind too. Like, you're willing to give them up for that long?
And their best hours at that,
Yeah,
generally. Like their best time
exactly,
of day.
exactly. And my kids would watch they just wait at the window for the kids on the street to come home, and they're lugging heavy backpacks, and they can't come out and play because they still have 2 hours of homework to do, and they're like, what does that mean? Why do they have homework? They've been gone all day, and they could never understand that whole philosophy, and that encouraged them to not, wow, they can sit and play Lego for 2 hours, and the things that can be created out of boxes, I'm amazed. The photographs I have, I look at them once in a while and go, wow, look at how creative they were in the things they could do, that they can entertain themselves, and they still both love to read. I'm happy that I did it, and I still am, I could never, people still say I could never stay home with my kids, we'd kill each other, or we don't get along, and I'm thinking, wow, if it's best for your kid, you make it work out. I wasn't happy every day by any stretch of the imagination, but looking back, I can say it was the best choice we made, even though there was some hard times where you just want to tie them up or something. Yeah.
So what was hard?
Just the never being away from them. There was no time to just, my best hours of the day are like theirs, mornings, daytimes. And there was just no, it felt like there was no personal me for me, right? I just feel like, wow, everything was about them and school. It was, and looking back, it was just a blink. It's like being pregnant, you forget that it's 9 racking months. And school was, all of a sudden it was gone. That once they could read, there's so much they did independently that I would just, here's what you have to do. And they were very independent in what how they did, that I actually kind of started missing it and wanting to be involved in, to their annoyance. Get out, I'm doing my work, right? You don't need to see what this is.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I wanted independent learners, I've got them, right? So it goes fast, and I think that was, watching the other kids leave when mom could just sit in her pajamas and have a cup of coffee alone. But that's a few years. It was actually mostly fun.
Anybody else?
I have a question. If you sound like you have very flexible days with them.
Mhm.
So did you have any set of rules throughout your day? Like between certain hours, was there
You get up in the
no
morning
TV
and you do
or
math.
no? Okay.
No, you get up in the morning and you do math, because that was the first thing, that was the thing that I felt really strongly about, that they have to, if they're gonna keep on doing they like to read, they wrote stories forever. I knew they could research, they'd be able to write an essay, they'd be able to figure that out. And so my first thing was, you get up in the morning, you eat your breakfast, you watch a half an hour of cartoons if that's what you want, and then you sit at the table and do math, and then we figure out what the rest of the day looks like. My father died in 2002, so they were both, one was in kindergarten, one was in grade 3 or 4 at the time. That was difficult, but those were days, there were weeks sometimes that it felt like we didn't do any school at all. They would shuffle through their math and English workbooks, and the rest of it was just, let's take Grandpa where he needs to go again for me. And they made it through. But no, we didn't have any. They got into, teenagers, and my oldest son was in the gaming revolution online, where it just was, you'd have a whole community of people from all over the place playing different, what were they called? It's kind of like chess almost, the type of games. They were battles and things, but you had to have a system and work together as a team. And he had a friend in New England and in Texas and in Australia and in California, and they would meet together online every night after dinner and play for an hour. And I was okay with that, because the things that he was actually learning on there were their strategy games. And I loved what he was learning in the strategy. I didn't necessarily love that it usually involved weapons, but most of it they were historically placed times, and it was stuff that happened. I made him turn off the thing that showed actual real blood, but they did that, and he's a smart guy. He can figure out problems, and he can problem solve, and I think some of that is from doing some of those things. They never seemed to have behavior problems from being, I was probably pretty relaxed about online stuff. That was always the thing I could withhold for punishment, but they didn't have to happen very often. And they never seemed to have behavior issues that I thought crossed any lines that I disagreed with because of that. But we were pretty relaxed, but they liked to be outside with their friends, and kick the can is more fun than some other things that you can do. So they were outside with people, the neighborhood kids, and like I say, they like to read books. And my one rule was, if you want to watch the movie, you have to read the book first. So when they knew movies were coming out, they had to read the book first. And pretty much without fail, they would watch the movie and go, well, the book was way better. Of course it was. But they needed to know that. So. But yeah, we didn't have too much. I was pretty flexible. But I could be, because they didn't misbehave or get into trouble a lot, I guess. At least I didn't see it.